The Ice Age was a world unlike anything most humans today can imagine. A realm of unrelenting cold, towering glaciers, and endless white plains stretching to the horizon. The air was sharp and biting, carrying with it the constant threat of frostbite and hypothermia. In this frozen wilderness, survival was not merely a challenge. It was a relentless, daily struggle against forces far greater than oneself. Every morning brought the uncertainty of whether a caveman would find shelter, warmth, or sustenance, and every night presented the possibility that the cold could be lethal. This was a world in which life and death existed in a delicate, precarious balance, and only those who adapted could endure. The landscape itself seemed hostile and alive. Jagged ice formations jutted from frozen rivers, while the wind tore across open plains with a persistent, bone-chilling ferocity. Forests were muted and skeletal, trees stripped of foliage, their branches laden with frost. Animals of immense size, some gentle, others deadly predators, roamed this icy expanse. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, and bison trudged through snowdrifts, their thick fur providing a stark contrast to the fragile humans who tracked them, hunted them, and sometimes depended on them for survival. These creatures were both food and threat, their presence shaping every human decision in the frozen world. Cavemen themselves were marvels of resilience and ingenuity. They were not passive victims of their environment. They observed, adapted, and learned from every challenge the Ice Age presented. Their daily existence required a constant negotiation with nature. The cold demanded innovation in clothing, shelter, and firemaking. The scarcity of food required patience, cooperation, and strategic planning. Even the smallest miscalculation, a poorly insulated cave, a failed hunt, a fire that went out, could be the difference between life and death. The sheer intensity of this environment forged skills and traits that would shape humanity for millennia to come. The rhythm of life during winter was dictated by the environment. Cavemen awoke to gray dawns, their breath crystallizing in the frigid air. Every step across frozen terrain demanded energy and focus, each movement weighed down by layers of animal skins and furs. Hunting parties moved silently, tracking herds through snow, always alert to predators and rival tribes. The nights were the most treacherous. As temperatures plummeted, the warmth of a fire or the shared body heat of a family could be the only barrier between survival and death. The silence of the frozen world, punctuated only by the distant roar of wind or the cry of a wolf, emphasized the constant tension between vulnerability and vigilance. Despite these hardships, there was also wonder and discovery. The Ice Age created breathtaking landscapes that inspired awe even in those who struggled to survive within them. Sunlight reflecting off endless sheets of ice created blinding brilliance, while the aurora borealis danced across the night sky, a reminder of the beauty intertwined with danger. Cavemen were observers of this world, learning lessons from melting ice, animal tracks, and the shifting patterns of weather. These observations required patience and careful attention, qualities that would prove essential in their ongoing battle with the cold. This opening section establishes not only the physical environment of the Ice Age, but also the psychological and emotional landscape. It contrasts the stark fear and vulnerability of exposure with the ingenuity and determination that allowed humans to endure. By immersing viewers in the sensory details, the bite of the wind, the crunch of snow underfoot, the comforting glow of fire, it creates a cinematic, almost tactile experience. The audience begins to understand that survival was not merely about strength or speed, but about adaptability, foresight, and the ability to read and respond to a world that was both beautiful and deadly. As the scene closes, viewers are left with a clear sense of the stakes. The Ice Age was not a backdrop. It was an active, demanding character in the story of human survival. Every frozen gust of wind, every snow-laden tree, every distant shadow of a mammoth shaped the decisions, the innovations, and the very existence of a caveman. By stepping into this frozen world, The audience is invited to witness the remarkable resilience of humanity, setting the stage for the detailed exploration of survival strategies, social bonds, and ingenuity that will follow in subsequent sections. The Ice Age was not a single, static period, but a dynamic epoch of extreme environmental change. Glaciers advanced and retreated over thousands of years, reshaping continents, rivers, and forests. Temperatures fluctuated dramatically, plunging regions into bitter cold winters while occasional brief summers offered fleeting abundance. For early humans, these shifts were not abstract concepts. They were daily realities that determined where they could live, what food was available, and whether they could survive the season. The land itself seemed in constant flux, a living puzzle that demanded careful observation and adaptation. The climate dictated the distribution of life, both human and animal. Vast tundras stretched across northern regions, barren and frozen, while southern valleys and riverbanks offered relative refuge with exposed soil and sparse vegetation. Snow covered the land for months, sometimes years, hiding edible plants and altering migration patterns of prey animals. Rivers froze, cutting off access to water and fish, while storms could isolate groups for days or weeks. Early humans had to develop an acute understanding of these patterns. They learned to recognize signs of seasonal change, such as the angle of sunlight, the thickness of ice, or the behavior of animals, using these cues to anticipate challenges and plan survival strategies. Animals dominated this world, both as competitors and resources. Massive herbivores like mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and bison were vital for sustenance, providing meat, fat, hides, and bones for tools and shelter. Carnivorous predators, saber-toothed cats, wolves, and hyenas, added constant danger, capable of stalking and killing humans if caution was abandoned. Each animal represented both opportunity and threat. Tracking herds required patience and ingenuity. Understanding predator behavior could mean avoiding death. Humans were forced into a delicate balance, relying on observation, timing, and cooperation to secure what they needed without falling victim to what hunted them. The presence of these animals also influenced human innovation. Large prey required not only tools, but coordinated hunting techniques. Simple spear throwing evolved into complex ambush strategies, including driving animals toward natural traps, cliffs, or frozen rivers. Human ingenuity was tested constantly, forcing adaptation to both environmental and ecological challenges. At the same time, humans had to compete with other species for limited resources, learning to share, defend, or find alternatives. The Ice Age thus became a crucible for early technological and cognitive development, where survival demanded not only physical strength, but foresight and creativity. Humans themselves were evolving in this harsh landscape. Homo sapiens had developed a remarkable capacity for planning, tool-making, and social cooperation, while Neanderthals displayed resilience and physical adaptations to cold climates, such as robust bones and greater muscle mass. Both species faced similar challenges, securing food, creating shelter, and maintaining warmth. The differences in anatomy, culture, and strategy shaped survival outcomes, with each adaptation offering unique advantages. Understanding the interaction between human biology and the environment is crucial to grasping how early humans endured the extremes of winter. This section also emphasizes the interconnectedness of climate, animals, and human behavior. Seasonal cycles dictated migration, which in turn influenced hunting patterns and social organization. When prey animals moved, humans followed. When ice and snow made rivers impassable, new routes and shelters had to be found. Survival was not static. It was a continuous negotiation with a living, changing world. Each day brought new risks and lessons, requiring observation, patience, and flexibility. The Ice Age was both teacher and adversary, forcing humans to learn and adapt or perish. The psychological impact of this environment cannot be underestimated. Living amid glaciers and frozen plains shaped cognition, perception, and decision-making. Constant exposure to danger sharpened awareness and fostered vigilance. Humans developed mental strategies to cope with fear, scarcity, and unpredictability. Observing animal behavior, predicting weather, and planning hunts or migrations became exercises in patience and intelligence. These mental adaptations were as critical as physical ones, highlighting the complex interplay between environment and human ingenuity. Geography also played a significant role. Ice sheets covered much of Europe, North America, and Asia, while lower latitudes offered survival corridors. Valleys, caves, and riverbanks became crucial refuges, providing protection from the elements and strategic points for hunting or gathering. Humans had to navigate treacherous landscapes, balancing the need for food and shelter with the risk of exposure or predator attacks. Even small topographical features, a hill, a frozen river crossing, a stand of trees, could be life-saving or deadly depending on how they were approached. By the end of this section, viewers gain a comprehensive understanding of the Ice Age as a multifaceted arena of survival. They see how climate, animals, and human behavior were intertwined in a complex ecosystem where each decision had profound consequences. The harshness of the environment is contrasted with human ingenuity and resilience, setting the stage for the deeper exploration of strategies, tools, and social structures that allowed cavemen to endure winters. The narrative prepares the audience to appreciate not only the physical, but also the intellectual and emotional challenges faced by early humans, framing their survival as a triumph of adaptation against overwhelming odds. Surviving the bitter winters of the Ice Age was as much a mental challenge as it was a physical one. Cavemen lived in a world where frostbite, hypothermia, and starvation were constant threats, and the unpredictability of weather amplified anxiety. The cold was relentless, penetrating even the thickest layers of animal skins and testing the limits of human endurance. Each decision, whether to hunt, forage, move to a new shelter, or light a fire, carried profound consequences. Mistakes could mean frostbitten fingers, failed hunts, or even death. For early humans, survival demanded an extraordinary capacity for patience, foresight, and emotional resilience. Fear was an ever-present companion in the frozen world. Nights brought an especially acute sense of vulnerability. Darkness amplified the unknown. The howls of wolves or distant growls of predators reminded humans that they were never alone in the snow. The fear of hunger and exposure heightened stress, forcing early humans to become hyper-aware of their surroundings. Yet, paradoxically, this fear was also a driving force for innovation. It inspired the creation of fire, the construction of better shelters, and the careful observation of animal behavior. Fear, in this sense, was both a danger and a motivator, pushing humans to think ahead and act strategically. Patience became an essential survival skill. Hunting in winter required long hours of waiting, tracking, and observing prey. Cavemen learned to read subtle signs in the landscape, footprints in the snow, broken branches indicating animal movement, or distant sounds carried by the wind. Even foraging demanded careful timing. Some roots could only be harvested after frost, and certain frozen berries could be consumed only when thawed slightly. Learning to wait for the right moment, to conserve energy during bitter cold, and to act deliberately became an art of survival. The contrast between impulsive action and calculated patience often determined who lived and who succumbed to the harsh environment. Observation was intertwined with endurance. Melting ice, shifting snowdrifts, and the behavior of animals provided vital information about seasonal changes and potential dangers. Early humans became keen students of their surroundings, understanding that subtle patterns could reveal food sources or warn of approaching predators. This kind of attentive observation required a calm mind, the ability to suppress panic, and the foresight to plan for days or weeks ahead. The Ice Age cultivated these mental skills, blending necessity with acute intelligence. The psychological development fostered in such conditions was profound, setting the foundation for complex decision-making in human societies. Endurance was not only physical, but emotional. Surviving the cold meant enduring discomfort for extended periods. Nights without fire, long treks through snow, and limited nourishment. Humans had to cultivate resilience, drawing on internal reserves of courage and determination. Shared experiences within a tribe reinforced this endurance. Witnessing others persevere provided both guidance and emotional support. Social bonds became intertwined with psychological survival, as communal strength amplified individual resilience. Humans learned that fear could be mitigated not only through preparation, but also through solidarity, cooperation, and trust. The contrast between vulnerability and control shaped early human cognition. While humans were physically smaller and weaker than many of their predators, their ability to anticipate, plan, and manipulate the environment gave them an advantage. Mental strategies became as crucial as tools and weapons. For instance, deciding when to leave a safe cave to hunt or when to conserve firewood during an exceptionally cold night required careful risk assessment. The mind became a critical survival tool, converting knowledge and experience into actionable strategies. Humans who could balance fear with measured action, anxiety with observation, and impatience with foresight were the ones most likely to endure the harsh winters. Even the smallest observations carried significance. Watching how snow melted in the sun could indicate safe paths, reveal hidden water sources, or signal temperature changes. Studying animal behavior taught cavemen where to find food, when to migrate, and how to anticipate predator movements. These lessons demanded patience. Rushing or ignoring signs could be fatal. The psychological discipline of attentiveness, coupled with the ability to delay immediate gratification in favor of long-term survival, distinguished successful early humans from those who perished. The development of such mental skills had long-lasting consequences. It fostered problem-solving abilities, strategic thinking, and an understanding of cause and effect relationships in a hostile environment. Cavemen learned to integrate sensory information with memory and prediction, laying the groundwork for more complex cognitive functions. Survival in winter was a daily test of intellect and emotional regulation, demonstrating that adaptation was as much about mind as it was about body. By the end of this section, viewers begin to understand that the Ice Age was not merely a test of physical toughness, but a rigorous training ground for human psychology. The constant interplay of fear and patience, vigilance and calm, desperation and strategy shaped early humans into highly observant, resilient, and intelligent beings. It provides a lens through which the audience can appreciate subsequent innovations in fire, shelter, hunting, and social cooperation, all of which were influenced as much by the mind as by the body. The stark contrast between vulnerability and control, cold and warmth, danger and safety set the tone for the deeper exploration of survival strategies in the coming sections. Fire was humanity's most transformative discovery, the single innovation that could turn the relentless cold of the Ice Age from a deadly threat into a manageable challenge. For early humans, fire was not just warmth, it was survival, community, and a tool for controlling the environment. The biting winds, frozen rivers, and snow-laden nights could be endured when flames burned steadily in a cave or atop a carefully constructed hearth. Without fire, cavemen were vulnerable to frostbite, hypothermia, and the constant threat of predatory attacks. Fire became a lifeline, bridging the gap between vulnerability and security, chaos and control. The origin of fire mastery was as much about observation as it was about experimentation. Cavemen likely first encountered natural fires caused by lightning strikes, volcanic activity, or spontaneous combustion. Watching how these fires behaved, how wood burned, and how heat radiated into surrounding spaces, early humans learned valuable lessons about managing and reproducing fire. This learning process required patience and acute observation. They had to understand the materials that ignited easily, the techniques to transfer embers safely, and the ways to protect the flame from wind and snow. Each success reinforced knowledge, while each failure was a potentially lethal lesson in environmental mastery. Maintaining fire in winter was an extraordinary challenge. Snowstorms, wind, and cold temperatures made sparks and embers fragile. Cavemen developed methods to shield flames using rocks, earth, and primitive windbreaks. They learned to select dry, combustible materials such as birch bark, resinous wood, and animal fat to sustain long-lasting fires. Fire was a precious resource. Losing it overnight could mean exposure to deadly cold or attacks from nocturnal predators. The tension between the vulnerability of fire and the safety it provided highlights the constant negotiation humans had with nature, a balance of control and dependence, fear and comfort. Beyond warmth, fire dramatically changed diet and nutrition. Raw meat and tough roots became edible, more digestible, and safer through cooking. This allowed early humans to extract more calories and nutrients from available food, directly increasing their chances of survival in harsh winters. Cooking also reduced the risk of disease, preserving health during periods of scarcity when immunity could easily be compromised. In this way, fire was both a shield against environmental threats and a tool that enhanced human physiology, demonstrating a profound link between technology and survival. Fire also shaped social life and cooperation. Around a flickering flame, families and tribes could gather, communicate, and plan. Knowledge of hunting routes, foraging techniques, and survival strategies was shared, creating communal learning that strengthened group cohesion. The fire became a central point of trust, safety, and social bonding. Its glow symbolized security in a world of uncertainty, providing psychological relief from fear and reinforcing the human capacity for connection even in the harshest circumstances. This social dimension of fire underscores its role not merely as a tool, but as a cornerstone of early human culture. The psychological effects of fire were profound. Warmth provided comfort, reducing stress and conserving energy in cold conditions. The visual and auditory stimuli, the crackling of flames, the shifting shadows on cave walls, offered a sense of control in an otherwise unpredictable environment. Fire taught humans about cause and effect, patience, and careful tending. Children observed elders maintaining embers, learning skills that would be crucial for their own survival. Fire was both a teacher and a protector, a force that transformed fear into mastery and chaos into order. Fire also extended the boundaries of daily life. Nights no longer meant complete inactivity or isolation. With firelight, humans could work on tools, repair clothing, prepare food, and engage in early forms of ritual or storytelling. It extended productive hours beyond the limitations imposed by daylight, allowing the transmission of culture, skills, and knowledge. In many ways, fire became a symbol of human ingenuity, turning a hostile environment into a space where creativity and survival could coexist. Controlling fire required innovation and intelligence. Cavemen developed methods to create sparks using flint and iron-rich stones, generating controlled ignition without relying solely on natural fires. They learned to carry embers in insulated containers of bark or moss, ensuring continuity when migrating or moving camps. This ability to create, transport, and preserve fire marked a turning point in human evolution, a conscious manipulation of nature that demonstrated both technological skill and foresight. The mastery of fire was not simply survival. It was an assertion of human agency in the face of overwhelming environmental pressure. Fire also had defensive purposes. Its warmth and light deterred predators, and the smoke could signal human presence over long distances, warning rival tribes or marking territory. Fires on hilltops or along riverbanks could serve as beacons, coordinating hunting parties or migrations. The strategic use of fire illustrates how early humans combined observation, planning, and creativity to enhance safety and control over their surroundings. It was a multifaceted tool, at once warmth, nutrition, communication, and protection. Perhaps most importantly, fire symbolized hope in the Ice Age. In the darkest nights, amidst blizzards and frozen landscapes, a flame represented survival, ingenuity, and the possibility of life. The contrasts are vivid. The merciless cold outside versus the comforting warmth inside. The fear of the unknown outside the cave versus the security of communal firelight. Fire turned desperation into opportunity and danger into manageable risk. For early humans, mastering fire was not just a technological achievement. It was a profound psychological victory over the environment itself. By the end of this section, viewers gain a clear understanding that fire was the central pillar of survival during the Ice Age. It shaped daily life, diet, social structures, and human cognition, bridging the gap between vulnerability and control. The story of fire illustrates the ingenuity, adaptability, and determination of early humans, setting the stage for exploring shelters, clothing, and other survival strategies that built upon this fundamental discovery. Fire was the lifeline that allowed cavemen to endure the coldest nights, survive winter scarcity, and lay the foundations of human civilization. Shelters were the frontline defense against the relentless cold of the Ice Age. While fire provided warmth, it was the physical protection of a well-chosen or well-constructed shelter that often determined whether a caveman survived a harsh winter night. Early humans were keen observers of nature, learning to recognize the protective qualities of caves, rock overhangs, and natural hollows. These natural structures offered immediate refuge, shielding inhabitants from icy winds, snowstorms, and predatory animals. Yet, as the challenges of winter intensified, humans also began to innovate, constructing shelters using animal bones, hides, and other materials to extend the boundaries of habitable spaces. Caves were among the most prized shelters. Deep within mountains or cliffs, they provided insulation from both wind and extreme temperature fluctuations. Thick rock walls absorbed and retained heat from fires, creating a relatively stable environment even during blizzards. Caves also offered security from large predators, whose size and agility made navigating narrow entrances difficult. Evidence from Paleolithic sites shows that early humans often returned to the same caves season after season, creating semi-permanent homes where they could store food, keep warm, and maintain social structures. The contrast between the exposed plains outside and the insulated sanctuary of a cave highlights how crucial natural shelters were in human survival. However, not all groups had access to suitable caves. In open plains or tundra regions, humans had to innovate. Temporary structures were created using what the environment offered: wooden frameworks covered with animal skins, layered branches, or snow. Snow itself, surprisingly, became a valuable material for shelter. In some regions, humans built insulated snow huts or windbreaks, using the density of snow to retain heat while shielding themselves from icy gusts. These constructions required careful planning. Entrances were strategically oriented to minimize wind exposure, and interiors were compact to conserve body heat. The ingenuity displayed in these designs demonstrates the adaptability and creativity of early humans in confronting environmental extremes. Inside these shelters, the arrangement of space was critical. Communal living allowed groups to share warmth and maintain social bonds. Sleeping areas were often organized around central hearths, with furs and animal hides providing insulation from the cold floor. Tools, weapons, and food supplies were stored carefully, often in elevated positions or against walls to protect them from moisture and pests. This careful management of resources and space reflects not only practical survival instincts, but also an understanding of cause and effect and foresight. The cave or hut was more than just shelter. It was a microcosm of human adaptation and ingenuity. Building and maintaining shelters was a collaborative effort, often involving the entire group. Men, women, and even children contributed, whether by gathering materials, constructing frameworks, or preparing insulation. Cooperation was vital. A single failure, such as a hole in a roof or an improperly insulated entrance, could compromise the safety of all occupants. The process of creating shelters reinforced social bonds and emphasized shared responsibility. It also allowed knowledge to be transmitted across generations, with young members learning construction techniques and survival strategies by observation and participation. This social dimension highlights the interplay between physical survival and community cohesion. Shelters also played a role in psychological well-being. The comfort of a protected space reduced stress, allowing humans to conserve energy and focus on essential tasks such as hunting, foraging, and planning migrations. Being able to retreat from the harsh environment created a sense of control and security, counteracting the constant fear and anxiety of exposure. The contrast between the unforgiving cold outside and the relative warmth and safety inside reinforced the value of planning, ingenuity, and social cooperation. Humans learned that survival depended not just on physical strength, but on understanding and manipulating their environment to create safe havens. Seasonal changes further influenced shelter design and selection. During periods of extreme cold, humans might seek the most insulated caves or build snow-based structures, while in milder seasons, temporary shelters closer to water or hunting grounds were preferred. Understanding seasonal patterns was crucial. A poorly timed move or an inadequate shelter could result in frostbite, starvation, or predation. Early humans learned to read environmental cues, including wind direction, snow accumulation, and animal behavior, integrating this knowledge into their choices of where and how to shelter. Adaptation to the cyclical rhythm of winter became a vital skill, intertwining observation, experience, and foresight. Interestingly, shelters were not only functional but also symbolic. The act of creating a secure space in a harsh world reflected human ingenuity and determination. Shelters became centers of culture, where firelight allowed storytelling, teaching, and social rituals. They provided a controlled environment where humans could plan, experiment, and innovate, turning survival into a dynamic process rather than a constant struggle. The contrast between the wild, chaotic elements outside and the organized, protected interior highlights the psychological and cultural significance of shelters beyond mere physical protection. In essence, shelters represented the intersection of necessity, creativity, and social intelligence. They demonstrate how humans actively shaped their environment to survive, rather than passively enduring it. From the natural caves that offered immediate refuge to the snow huts and hide-covered structures that required planning and collaboration, shelters were a testament to early human resilience. They allowed groups to withstand prolonged winters, conserve energy, share warmth, and maintain social bonds, each factor critical to survival in a world defined by extremes. By the end of this section, viewers gain a vivid understanding of how essential shelters were to Ice Age survival. The narrative contrasts the exposed, dangerous landscapes outside with the protected, organized interiors of caves and huts, emphasizing human ingenuity and adaptability. This sets the stage for subsequent discussions of clothing, hunting, and social strategies, showing how physical protection, innovation, and communal effort intertwine to ensure life in the harshest conditions imaginable. Securing food during the harsh winters of the Ice Age was one of the greatest challenges early humans faced. Scarcity defined the frozen landscape, as thick layers of snow and ice buried vegetation and forced animals into migratory patterns. Every day was a careful calculation of risk and reward. Venturing into the cold to hunt a large animal could provide sustenance for days, but a misstep could lead to injury, death, or wasted effort. Early humans relied on a combination of observation, strategy, and collaboration to locate, capture, and process food. Hunting was not merely a physical endeavor. It required understanding animal behavior, environmental patterns, and the collective skill of the group. Observation of prey was fundamental to successful hunting. Humans tracked herds over vast distances, interpreting footprints, broken branches, and other subtle signs to predict movement. Understanding animal behavior allowed early humans to plan ambushes, identify seasonal migrations, and anticipate feeding habits. Knowledge of predator-prey relationships was also critical. Humans had to be wary of large carnivores that hunted the same species or could attack humans themselves. This detailed environmental awareness highlights the cognitive complexity of hunting strategies, where survival depended on insight, patience, and the ability to anticipate future events. Hunting techniques evolved with necessity. Spears, clubs, and later composite weapons enabled humans to hunt large, cold-adapted animals such as mammoths, bison, reindeer, and horses. Groups often worked cooperatively, driving herds into natural traps, using coordinated ambushes, or employing fire to corral prey. Small game and birds supplemented the diet, hunted with snares, traps, and strategic observation. This combination of large and small prey allowed humans to diversify their food sources, mitigating the risk of starvation when large herds were not available. The variety of hunting methods illustrates adaptability and innovation under extreme environmental pressure. Fire played a pivotal role in food processing and safety. Cooking meat over a flame made it easier to chew, more digestible, and safer to eat by eliminating pathogens. Fire also allowed humans to dry or smoke meat for preservation, ensuring that surplus could be stored for lean periods. Early humans learned to combine preservation techniques with seasonal hunting patterns, creating caches of dried or frozen food that extended their survival during the harshest months. This foresight and planning demonstrate an early understanding of resource management, caloric efficiency, and long-term survival strategy. Gathering and foraging complemented hunting efforts. While meat was essential for calories, plant foods provided vitamins, minerals, and dietary variety. Roots, tubers, nuts, and berries were harvested when available, often from frozen or partially snow-covered landscapes. Knowledge of edible plants, their locations, and seasonal availability was crucial. Humans adapted techniques to retrieve these foods safely and efficiently, using tools to dig through frozen soil or snow. Foraging reinforced observational skills and seasonal awareness, while also providing a fallback in case hunting failed. Collaboration was central to securing food. Hunting large prey required group coordination, with members assigned specific roles: drivers, ambushers, guards, and butchers. Cooperation allowed groups to tackle animals far larger than any individual could manage, while distributing caloric rewards across the community. Shared knowledge about hunting techniques, animal behavior, and tool use was passed down orally, ensuring that each generation could continue the practices that sustained the group. Social learning was as critical as physical skill, emphasizing that survival relied on both collective intelligence and labor. Food storage and preservation were strategic innovations. Ice Age humans discovered that frozen landscapes could act as natural refrigerators, but they also developed methods to dry, smoke, and store food in caches to ensure year-round availability. Preservation techniques reduced waste, allowed for energy-efficient consumption, and minimized risk during periods of scarcity. Strategic storage highlights the combination of cognitive foresight and practical problem-solving. Humans anticipated future need, evaluated environmental conditions, and developed solutions to extend the utility of resources. Hunting also required careful risk management. Close encounters with large animals or predators could be fatal. Early humans learned to assess when to engage, when to retreat, and how to minimize exposure to danger. Strategic use of terrain, observation of herd behavior, and timing attacks for optimal conditions were all integral. Risk assessment extended to resource allocation, deciding how many hunters to deploy, how much energy to expend, and how to prioritize targets. These decisions reflect a sophisticated understanding of cost-benefit analysis in real-world survival scenarios. Seasonal and environmental knowledge shaped food strategies. Humans tracked migration routes, monitored plant growth, and anticipated environmental hazards such as snowstorms or frozen rivers. This knowledge guided hunting schedules, foraging excursions, and food storage practices. By synchronizing survival activities with natural rhythms, humans could optimize energy expenditure, maximize yield, and reduce the likelihood of critical shortages. The interplay between environmental awareness and strategic action exemplifies the adaptive intelligence of Ice Age humans. Tool use and technological innovation were central to securing food. Stone knives, scrapers, and blades allowed for precise butchering, while spears and projectile weapons extended the reach of hunters. Wooden and bone implements were refined for specific purposes, such as digging roots or creating traps for small animals. The continual improvement of these tools demonstrates iterative learning, where observation, trial and error, and shared knowledge led to more effective and efficient survival strategies. Psychological resilience underpinned hunting and foraging. Humans faced repeated uncertainty, periods of hunger, and high-risk situations with courage and patience. Hunting demanded focus, discipline, and the ability to endure harsh weather and long hours without immediate reward. Failure was inevitable, but each attempt provided valuable experience and knowledge, shaping future behavior and reinforcing adaptive skills. The contrast between the constant threat of scarcity and the satisfaction of a successful hunt underscores the tension and triumph inherent in Ice Age survival. Conflict over food resources occasionally arose, both within and between groups. Sharing food reinforced social cohesion, while hoarding or competition could lead to tension. Intergroup encounters sometimes involve negotiation, exchange, or outright conflict, reflecting the complex social dynamics of survival. Early humans learned to balance cooperation and competition, ensuring group stability while securing essential resources. These social strategies highlight that securing food was not merely a physical challenge, but also a social and cultural one. The cumulative impact of hunting, foraging, preservation, and social strategy illustrates the comprehensive intelligence of Ice Age humans. Securing sustenance required integration of observation, technology, cooperation, psychological resilience, and environmental knowledge. Each success and failure contributed to a growing body of practical wisdom, transmitted across generations to ensure continuity and adaptability. The narrative contrasts the harshness of frozen landscapes with the ingenuity and collaboration that allowed humans not only to survive, but to thrive. By the end of this section, viewers understand that food acquisition during the Ice Age was a complex, multidimensional process. Hunting, gathering, preservation, risk assessment, and social coordination were inseparably linked, reflecting both cognitive sophistication and physical endurance. The story of Ice Age sustenance highlights the intelligence, adaptability, and collaborative spirit that allowed humans to master one of the most unforgiving environments in Earth's history. Every meal secured was a testament to observation, strategy, and resilience, shaping the evolution of human culture, technology, and social organization. Winter hunting in the Ice Age was a perilous, exacting task that required patience, strategy, and acute observation. The frozen landscape posed immense challenges. Deep snow slowed movement, icy winds drained energy, and prey animals had adapted to the harsh conditions, becoming elusive and cautious. For early humans, hunting was not a casual activity. It was a matter of life or death. Each expedition required careful planning, teamwork, and knowledge of the terrain, animal behavior, and seasonal changes. A successful hunt meant warmth, nourishment, and survival, while failure could lead to hunger, exposure, or even death. Cavemen developed highly sophisticated techniques to track and capture prey. Understanding animal habits was crucial. They observed migration patterns, feeding grounds, and behaviors to predict movements. Tracks in the snow, broken branches, and droppings provided essential clues, allowing hunters to anticipate where and when prey would appear. Patience was paramount. Hunters could follow a single herd for hours or days, moving silently through treacherous terrain, conserving energy, and remaining undetected. These skills required not only physical endurance, but also mental discipline, teaching early humans the value of observation, strategy, and calculated risk. Large prey, such as mammoths, reindeer, and bison, demanded cooperative hunting strategies. Solo hunting was rarely sufficient against creatures so massive and powerful. Groups coordinated ambushes, sometimes driving herds toward cliffs, frozen rivers, or natural traps. Weapons were simple yet effective: spears, atlatls, and sharp stone tools. But their use required precision and timing. Each hunter played a role, whether as a driver, thrower, or lookout, and communication, often nonverbal, was essential. The contrast between individual vulnerability and the power of coordinated action illustrates how social organization became a key survival tool in the Ice Age. The harsh winter environment influenced hunting techniques in other ways. Snow and ice could both hinder and aid hunters. Snow-covered ground revealed tracks, enabling the tracking of prey over long distances. Yet deep snow made stealth movement difficult. Ice on rivers and lakes allowed hunters to approach animals that might otherwise be inaccessible, but slippery surfaces also increased the risk of injury. Cavemen learned to use these environmental features to their advantage, adapting strategies to conditions that constantly shifted. Understanding and manipulating the landscape became as important as understanding the animals themselves. Resourcefulness extended beyond the kill itself. Once a prey animal was captured, nothing could go to waste. Meat was consumed immediately. Fat and marrow provided high-calorie nourishment. Hides were used for clothing and shelter, and bones were fashioned into tools and weapons. Preservation techniques, such as freezing, drying, or smoking, allowed humans to store food for lean periods, turning a successful hunt into a multi-week lifeline. The ability to extract maximum utility from a single kill demonstrates the ingenuity and efficiency of early human survival strategies in winter. Hunting in winter also required mental resilience. The cold, hunger, and fatigue imposed immense stress on individuals. Tracking prey for hours or days in sub-zero temperatures demanded focus, endurance, and emotional control. Fear of predatory animals, such as wolves or saber-toothed cats, added another layer of danger. Hunters had to balance risk with necessity, knowing that impulsive decisions could be fatal. The psychological demands of winter hunting cultivated patience, foresight, and problem-solving skills, reinforcing the importance of cognition in survival. The social dimension of hunting was equally significant. Success depended on cooperation and trust within the group. Experienced hunters guided younger members, teaching them techniques for tracking, ambushing, and butchering animals. Knowledge was transmitted orally and through demonstration, embedding survival skills within the culture of the tribe. Hunting expeditions strengthened social bonds, with shared successes reinforcing group cohesion and shared failures fostering learning and adaptation. The interplay between social structure and survival strategies highlights how hunting shaped not only physical sustenance, but also the development of complex human societies. Cavemen also developed tools and weapons tailored to winter hunting. Spears, knives, and atlatls were crafted from stone, bone, and wood, designed to penetrate thick hides and withstand cold, brittle conditions. Some groups fashioned sleds or drag systems to transport large kills back to camps, conserving energy and ensuring food reached the shelter. The innovation in weaponry and transport underscores the adaptive intelligence of early humans, demonstrating their ability to manipulate materials and environment for maximum survival advantage. Hunting in the winter was also a story of risk management. Timing was critical. Hunting during blizzards or extreme cold could be lethal, while waiting for slightly warmer periods improved chances of success. Prey scarcity forced humans to balance immediate needs with long-term planning, carefully calculating when and where to hunt. These decisions required an intimate understanding of ecology, weather patterns, and animal behavior, a combination of experiential knowledge and observational intelligence that evolved over generations. Perhaps most importantly, hunting in winter fostered resilience and innovation. Each successful kill reinforced strategies, tools, and social cooperation, while failures prompted adaptation and learning. The constant interplay of danger, scarcity, and opportunity shaped humans into skilled, patient, and resourceful beings. The contrast between the perilous frozen environment and the triumph of a successful hunt highlights the essence of Ice Age survival. life depended on observation, planning, ingenuity, and cooperation. By the end of this section, viewers understand that hunting in winter was not merely an activity. It was a high-stakes endeavor that combined physical skill, mental endurance, social coordination, and environmental mastery. The narrative contrasts the harshness of the frozen wilderness with the strategic brilliance of early humans, illustrating how survival in winter was a complex, dynamic process. This foundation prepares the audience for the subsequent section on foraging and food preservation, showing that human ingenuity extended to all aspects of securing sustenance in the Ice Age. While hunting provided crucial protein and fat, foraging was equally vital to survival during the harsh Ice Age winters. Plants, roots, nuts, berries, and even fungi offered essential vitamins and minerals, complementing meat-heavy diets. However, winter posed extraordinary challenges to foraging. Snow and ice concealed many edible resources, frost altered the nutritional value of plants, and scarcity forced early humans to develop keen knowledge of the environment. Recognizing edible versus poisonous items required careful observation and trial-and-error experience, a delicate balance between risk and reward that could mean the difference between nourishment and illness. Cavemen became adept at reading subtle cues in the landscape to locate food. Even under deep snow, certain plants could be identified by the patterns of dried stalks, the shape of exposed roots, or the presence of animal tracks that suggested buried food sources. Ice and frost sometimes acted as both barrier and preservation agent, allowing roots and tubers to be harvested in frozen conditions and stored without spoiling. Observing these patterns required patience, memory, and careful planning, demonstrating that survival in winter relied not only on physical labor, but also on intelligence and environmental awareness. Nuts and seeds were often stored in natural caches, hidden beneath snow or inside crevices, preserving them for lean periods. Berries, when available, were sometimes frozen for later consumption. Humans learned that freezing did not necessarily destroy nutritional value. In some cases, it enhanced the longevity of food. This understanding of seasonal cycles and preservation techniques allowed early humans to bridge periods of scarcity, ensuring that calories and nutrients were available when hunting was unsuccessful or prey was scarce. The ability to plan for months ahead reflects an extraordinary level of foresight and adaptation. Food preservation techniques extended beyond freezing. Cavemen discovered that drying meat and plants over low heat, smoking over fire, or burying food underground could prolong shelf life. Fat and marrow were also stored for high-energy needs, critical for maintaining warmth and physical activity during prolonged cold spells. These methods allowed humans to create small reserves, reducing reliance on immediate hunting success and providing a buffer against the unpredictability of winter. Such strategies illustrate a sophisticated understanding of the natural world, combining observation, experimentation, and knowledge transmission across generations. Foraging also required risk assessment. Traveling to distant areas to collect scarce food exposed humans to predators, harsh terrain, and severe weather. Decisions about when, where, and how far to forage involved balancing immediate caloric needs with safety considerations. Groups often coordinated foraging expeditions, sharing information about resource locations, and protecting each other from environmental threats. The social organization surrounding foraging reflects how survival was embedded not only in individual skill, but in cooperative behavior and communal intelligence. Knowledge of edible plants and safe foraging zones was culturally transmitted. Elders guided younger members, teaching them to distinguish between nutritious roots and toxic berries, or to recognize signs of hidden tubers beneath snow. Such education was embedded within daily life, storytelling, and practical demonstrations. Foraging was not simply an act of collection. It was an exercise in learning, memory, and cultural continuity. The contrast between immediate physical needs and long-term knowledge transmission illustrates how survival strategies were intertwined with cognitive and social development. Seasonal cycles shaped foraging patterns. During the brief summer months, humans gathered and preserved surplus foods, creating stores for the long winter ahead. Ice and snow acted as natural refrigerators, allowing caches to last for months. These practices were closely linked to hunting cycles, as groups balanced efforts between tracking prey and collecting plant-based foods. Early humans developed an integrated understanding of ecosystem dynamics, learning to anticipate changes and maximize available resources in a highly variable environment. The psychological benefits of food security were significant. Having preserved stores reduced anxiety, allowing humans to conserve energy and plan effectively. It strengthened social cohesion, as shared resources reinforced trust and mutual dependence. Food preservation techniques also encourage problem-solving, creativity, and experimentation, all of which contributed to the overall resilience of Ice Age communities. The contrast between scarcity and stored abundance highlights how foresight and innovation transformed survival from reactive struggle to strategic planning. In addition to sustenance, foraged food played a role in trade and social negotiation. Certain resources, like rare berries or dried roots, could be exchanged between groups, reinforcing alliances and reducing conflict over territory. This use of food as both nourishment and social currency demonstrates the interconnectedness of survival, economy, and social organization in early human communities. By the end of this section, viewers gain a deep appreciation for how foraging and food preservation were essential components of Ice Age survival. The narrative highlights the ingenuity, patience, and intelligence required to locate, harvest, and store scarce resources during winter. The contrast between scarcity and abundance, risk and reward, fear and security underscores the complexity of human adaptation. This foundation prepares the audience for the subsequent section on social structures and cooperation, illustrating that survival depended not only on individual skill, but on shared knowledge, planning, and the ability to work together in a hostile environment. Survival in the Ice Age was not a solitary endeavor. It depended heavily on the bonds between individuals, the strength of family units, and the cohesion of small social groups. Early humans recognized that cooperation was a critical tool against the harsh winter environment. A single person exposed to icy winds, scarce food, and lurking predators had slim chances of survival. In contrast, a tightly knit group could share warmth, resources, and knowledge, increasing the odds of life over death. Families were not just social units. They were survival units, where every role, skill, and relationship contributed directly to enduring the cold. Social life in the frozen world revolved around shared responsibilities and division of labor. Men often took primary roles in hunting, tracking, and tool-making, while women focused on foraging, food preparation, and maintaining shelters. Children were integrated into daily survival practices from an early age, learning essential skills such as identifying edible plants, sewing hides, or observing animal behavior. These tasks were not only practical, but also educational, ensuring the transmission of knowledge critical for survival. Every member of the group had a role, and the absence or failure of one could impact the well-being of the entire community. Cooperation extended to hunting strategies as well. Large prey, like mammoths and bison, required coordinated effort, where timing, positioning, and communication were vital. Nonverbal signals, gestures, and possibly early vocal cues were used to coordinate complex ambushes. Success in these endeavors fostered trust and strengthened social bonds, while failure emphasized the consequences of miscommunication. Through shared tasks, humans learned to rely on each other, creating a network of interdependence that was as essential as fire, shelter, and clothing. Family and social structures also provided emotional support, which was crucial in harsh winter conditions. The constant stress of scarcity, exposure, and predation could easily overwhelm individuals. Emotional bonds offered comfort and reduced psychological strain. Group members provided protection, encouragement, and reassurance, helping each other endure long, freezing nights or failed hunting expeditions. This interplay between emotional support and survival demonstrates that social cohesion was both a psychological and practical tool in human endurance. Children learn survival skills primarily through observation and imitation, often starting at a very young age. Watching adults hunt, gather, prepare food, and maintain shelters allowed them to absorb complex techniques and cultural knowledge. Play was sometimes incorporated into training, teaching coordination, problem-solving, and dexterity in a controlled, safe environment. These early learning experiences reinforced both skill development and social bonds, illustrating that education in Ice Age societies was integrated seamlessly into daily life and survival activities. Resource sharing was another critical aspect of social life. In times of scarcity, food, firewood, and shelter materials were distributed according to need, ensuring the survival of the group as a whole. This created a system of mutual dependency, where cooperation outweighed competition. Sharing was reinforced culturally and psychologically. It strengthened trust, reduced conflict, and promoted collective resilience. The contrast between the harsh, unforgiving world outside and the warmth and safety within a cooperative group underscores the importance of social strategy in human survival. Rituals and symbolic behavior were closely intertwined with social structures. Communal activities, such as storytelling by the fire, singing, or early forms of ceremony, reinforced group identity and cohesion. These shared experiences provided not only psychological comfort, but also a mechanism for transmitting knowledge, cultural norms, and survival strategies across generations. The ability to participate in rituals fostered trust, reinforced social hierarchies, and created a sense of belonging, crucial for maintaining unity in environments that could otherwise feel isolating and threatening. Conflict resolution was also an important aspect of social life. Disputes over resources, shelter space, or hunting priorities could threaten group cohesion. Early humans likely developed mechanisms for negotiation and compromise, ensuring that the survival of the collective took precedence over individual grievances. Social intelligence, including empathy, strategy, and diplomacy, became critical skills for sustaining group life. By managing conflict effectively, communities could maintain cooperation, preserve valuable relationships, and navigate the dangers of winter as a unified entity. Mobility and migration were coordinated social efforts as well. Groups often moved seasonally to follow prey or access foraging sites, requiring careful planning, communication, and cooperation. Decisions about when to move, how to transport young and elderly members, and how to allocate resources during travel involve collective judgment. The ability to synchronize movement and adapt to changing environments demonstrates that early humans were not only physically resilient, but socially sophisticated, capable of complex organization and collaborative problem-solving. Social structures also influenced reproductive strategies and family continuity. Ensuring the survival of offspring was paramount, particularly in winter when environmental pressures were greatest. Infant care, protection, and feeding were collective responsibilities, often shared among multiple members. Extended family networks likely provided additional support, reinforcing survival odds for both children and adults. The nurturing aspects of social life were intertwined with practical survival needs, illustrating that emotional care and physical protection were inseparable in Ice Age communities. By the end of this section, viewers gain a comprehensive understanding of how family and social life were fundamental to Ice Age survival. Cooperation, shared responsibilities, and emotional support were as critical as fire, clothing, and shelter. The narrative contrasts the isolation and danger of the frozen wilderness with the warmth, safety, and resilience of a tightly knit group. This perspective sets the stage for exploring more complex cultural aspects in subsequent sections, such as rituals, beliefs, and interactions with the natural and spiritual world, demonstrating that survival in winter depended on both social intelligence and communal effort. Fire was perhaps the most transformative innovation for Ice Age humans, offering warmth, protection, and a means to manipulate the environment in ways no other technology could. In freezing winters, fire was essential for survival, providing a defense against predators, a source of heat during long nights, and a method to cook food that increased nutritional value. Early humans developed sophisticated techniques to start and maintain fires, using flint, pyrite, friction methods, and dried plant material. The ability to create and control fire was not instinctive. It required learning, practice, and experimentation, as well as an understanding of the behavior of different materials under various conditions. This mastery turned the cold, threatening wilderness into a space where humans could exert some control over their survival. Shelters were equally critical in the fight against winter's harshness. Humans used natural formations such as caves, rock overhangs, and dense forests to provide initial protection from wind, snow, and predators. Over time, they began constructing more complex structures using wood, animal bones, hides, and stones, creating semi-permanent dwellings that could withstand severe weather. Shelters were not merely physical spaces. They were centers of community life, providing warmth, social cohesion, and a focal point for rituals and storytelling. The contrast between the exposed, frozen landscape and the security of a well-constructed shelter illustrates the strategic thinking that early humans applied to their environment. Fire and shelter worked in tandem. Fire placed within a carefully designed shelter provided maximum warmth while minimizing smoke accumulation, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of ventilation and heat management. Humans learned to position shelters in locations that offered natural protection from wind and precipitation while allowing access to resources and visibility of approaching threats. Strategic placement of shelters along hunting grounds or migration routes allowed communities to minimize energy expenditure and maximize safety. These architectural and environmental considerations highlight the combination of observation, trial and error learning, and foresight that characterized Ice Age survival strategies. Tools were central to both daily life and survival. Stone axes, flint knives, spears, and later composite tools allowed humans to hunt, process food, build shelters, and craft clothing. Each tool reflected careful selection of materials, understanding of physical properties, and adaptation to specific tasks. Early humans were not merely using tools. They were innovating, refining, and transmitting knowledge about production and application across generations. The development and improvement of tools demonstrate a cognitive leap. Humans were thinking not only about immediate needs, but about efficiency, durability, and versatility, reflecting abstract problem-solving skills alongside practical craftsmanship. Hunting tools, in particular, were shaped by the demands of winter survival. Large, cold-adapted prey, such as mammoths, bison, and reindeer required long-range planning, coordination, and specialized weapons. Spears were often tipped with carefully crafted points, designed to penetrate thick hides and reach vital organs. Snares, pits, and other traps complemented direct hunting, allowing humans to conserve energy while maximizing success rates. The strategic integration of tools into hunting demonstrates the interconnectedness of technology, observation, and social coordination in Ice Age life. Fire also played a role in food processing and preservation. Cooking meat over fire increased digestibility, reduced pathogens, and allowed humans to extract more calories from their food. Fire was used to harden wooden tools, treat hides for clothing and shelter construction, and even smoke food for preservation. The multifunctionality of fire illustrates its central place in daily life, transforming it from a simple survival necessity into a technological cornerstone that shaped almost every aspect of human activity. The psychological impact of fire and shelter cannot be overstated. Beyond physical warmth, fire provided comfort, a sense of security, and a focal point for social interaction. It allowed humans to congregate, share knowledge, tell stories, and perform rituals, reinforcing social bonds and transmitting cultural knowledge. The glow of fire against the darkness of the Ice Age night created not just safety, but a symbolic boundary between human life and the threatening wilderness. This interplay of physical protection and emotional reassurance demonstrates the holistic importance of these innovations. Shelters also became centers of craftsmanship and cultural expression. Animal hides were processed for clothing and bedding. Stone tools were sharpened and repaired, and communal activities reinforced group identity. The act of creating and maintaining a shelter was itself a learning process, involving experimentation with materials, spatial organization, and environmental adaptation. Over time, shelters evolved from temporary refuges into semi-permanent structures that reflected ingenuity, resourcefulness, and cultural continuity. Group coordination was essential in fire management, tool use, and shelter construction. Gathering fuel, maintaining fires, and organizing construction required cooperation and planning. Social roles emerged, with certain individuals taking responsibility for fire, tool crafting, or overseeing shelter integrity. The success of these tasks depended on communication, trust, and shared knowledge, highlighting the social dimension of technological mastery. Human survival in the Ice Age was not only about individual skill, but about the ability to work collectively, applying coordinated strategies to complex environmental challenges. Innovation was iterative. Early humans observed what worked and what failed, constantly refining techniques for fire starting, shelter construction, and tool production. Lessons were passed down orally or through demonstration, embedding survival knowledge into community culture. Over generations, this accumulation of knowledge led to more sophisticated shelters, more efficient tools, and more effective fire management strategies. The feedback loop between trial, observation, and refinement demonstrates the role of cognitive flexibility and problem-solving in human adaptation. Fire, tools, and shelters also facilitated migration and resource acquisition. Portable shelters, compact tools, and knowledge of fire management allowed humans to travel longer distances in search of food and seasonal resources. Temporary camps could be established along migration routes, providing safe resting points and preserving energy. This integration of technology and strategy ensured that humans could extend their reach into otherwise inhospitable terrain, turning mobility into a controlled, adaptive survival mechanism. By the end of this section, viewers gain a comprehensive understanding of how early humans mastered their environment through fire, tools, and shelters. The narrative contrasts the extreme cold, predatory threats, and scarcity of the Ice Age with the ingenuity, cooperation, and technological sophistication of humans. Mastery over fire, creation of durable shelters, and innovation in tools not only ensured survival, but also shaped social organization, culture, and cognitive development. These achievements exemplify the holistic intelligence of early humans, demonstrating how they transformed environmental adversity into opportunities for growth, collaboration, and creativity. For Ice Age humans, the natural world was both a provider and a threat. Animals offered essential resources: meat for food, hides for clothing, bones for tools, and fat for fuel. Yet the same animals were also predators or competitors, capable of inflicting injury or death if underestimated. Survival required a deep understanding of wildlife behavior, seasonal migration, and ecosystem dynamics. Humans had to balance the benefits of interaction with the dangers inherent in their environment, turning observation and intuition into critical survival tools. The relationship with animals shaped daily life, social organization, and even spiritual practices, intertwining survival with reverence and respect. Cavemen became keen observers of animal behavior, tracking movements through snow, identifying feeding grounds, and interpreting signs like footprints or broken vegetation allowed humans to predict patterns and plan hunting strategies. Understanding predator habits was equally important. Wolves, cave lions, and other carnivores presented constant threats. Humans learned to avoid dangerous encounters while exploiting opportunities to hunt or scavenge. This delicate balance between threat and sustenance highlights how survival depended on attentiveness, intelligence, and adaptability. The winter landscape further complicated interactions with animals. Scarcity of food for both humans and wildlife intensified competition. Herbivores migrated to find adequate grazing, while carnivores followed prey or scavenged. Humans, in turn, followed these movements, planning seasonal hunting expeditions and establishing temporary shelters near predictable resources. The knowledge of where and when animals would be present became a cornerstone of survival. Those who could read subtle environmental cues, changes in snow patterns, frozen water sources, or vegetation indicators, had a significant advantage. Humans also developed tools and strategies to interact safely with wildlife. Spears, atlatls, and stone-tipped weapons enabled hunters to defend themselves while taking down large or dangerous prey. Traps and ambush techniques allowed for capturing animals without direct confrontation, reducing risk. Fire served a dual purpose: warmth and a deterrent against predators, signaling human presence and keeping dangerous animals at bay. These tools and methods highlight the combination of intelligence, observation, and innovation that defined early human survival. Animals were not only practical resources, but also central to human culture and belief. Many cave paintings and carvings depict animals prominently, emphasizing their significance in both daily life and spiritual practice. Prey species, predators, and even symbolic creatures became part of storytelling, ritual, and education. These representations reinforced ecological knowledge and survival strategies, serving as visual guides for hunting, risk assessment, and seasonal planning. The integration of animals into culture illustrates the deep connection humans maintained with the natural world. Predators were a constant concern. Wolves, saber-toothed cats, and cave bears were not only threats to food sources, but to human life itself. Understanding their habits, territories, hunting patterns, and seasonal behaviors was crucial for avoiding deadly encounters. Early humans likely used collective vigilance, alarms, and coordinated defense strategies to minimize risk. The contrast between human vulnerability and the formidable power of these predators emphasizes the stakes of Ice Age survival and the necessity of careful planning and cooperation. Humans also adapted psychologically to the presence of wildlife. Fear and respect of animals guided behavior, teaching caution and strategy. Awareness of predator behavior influenced movement, hunting times, and shelter placement. This constant negotiation with the natural world shaped early human cognition, fostering problem-solving, risk assessment, and foresight. Humans who could manage fear and channel it into preparation had greater chances of survival, demonstrating the interplay of emotion, intellect, and environmental mastery. Symbiosis with certain animals was another survival strategy. Dogs, domesticated much later, but possibly in early stages, may have assisted with hunting and protection. Observing herd animals helped predict environmental changes, such as approaching storms or migration routes. Humans learned to follow ecological rhythms, understanding that animal behavior was a window into broader environmental patterns. This awareness was vital in winter, when food scarcity and freezing temperatures amplified the consequences of misjudgment. The natural world also offered lessons beyond immediate survival. Observing seasonal changes, animal behavior, and ecological interactions taught humans about patience, timing, and strategy. These lessons influenced hunting, foraging, and social organization, reinforcing the importance of observation and learning from the environment. Humans gradually became not just inhabitants of the Ice Age wilderness, but active interpreters of its patterns, shaping behavior and technology to align with natural cycles. By the end of this section, viewers gain a vivid sense of how humans lived in constant dialogue with nature. Animals were simultaneously allies, resources, and threats, demanding acute observation, strategic thinking, and cultural integration. The narrative contrasts the dangers of predators and the necessity of sustenance with the ingenuity and adaptive intelligence of early humans, setting the stage for discussions on migration, conflict, and long-distance survival strategies in subsequent sections. Understanding the relationship with animals underscores the complexity of life in the Ice Age. where knowledge, cooperation, and respect for the natural world were as essential as fire, shelter, and clothing. The frozen expanse of the Ice Age presented early humans with challenges unlike any faced by later civilizations. Survival was not a matter of remaining in one place. It demanded movement, mobility, and a profound understanding of the environment. Winter brought scarcity. Herds of animals migrated, vegetation was buried under ice and snow, and water sources often froze over. For Ice Age humans, migration was essential, a lifeline that allowed them to follow prey, locate new resources, and avoid environmental hazards. These journeys were not random wanderings, but carefully observed and planned movements, reflecting intelligence, cooperation, and a deep connection with the natural world. Observing the behavior of animals was central to planning migration routes. Herbivores moved in predictable patterns, seeking grazing lands and fresh water. Predators followed these herds, creating a complex chain of movement across the landscape. Humans learned to read these signs, interpreting footprints in the snow, broken vegetation, and other subtle markers. By following herd paths, humans ensured access to meat, hides, and bones, while simultaneously avoiding unnecessary confrontations with predators. This strategy highlights how humans turned observation into a survival tool, understanding the interdependence of life within the Ice Age ecosystem. Migration required careful resource management. Groups had to carry sufficient food, fire-starting materials, tools, and clothing to survive long distances, balancing necessity with mobility. Overpacking risked exhaustion and slowed movement, while under-preparation could mean starvation or hypothermia. Early humans developed methods for transporting heavy game, using drag techniques or constructing sled-like devices from wood and animal hides. They also carried essential tools for hunting, shelter construction, and fire maintenance, anticipating the challenges they would face along the journey. The logistical intelligence required demonstrates that Ice Age humans were not only physically adept, but also highly strategic in planning long-term survival. Traveling in groups provided both protection and efficiency. Migration was inherently dangerous, exposing humans to predators, rival groups, and environmental hazards. By moving collectively, humans could protect vulnerable members such as children, the elderly, or the injured. Leadership often emerged from the most experienced individuals, who guided the group through treacherous terrain, determined when to rest, and organized shifts in lookout responsibilities. Communication, coordination, and trust were essential, reinforcing social cohesion and collective problem-solving. The contrast between individual vulnerability and the safety of a well-organized group underscores the critical role of social intelligence in Ice Age survival. Environmental hazards added complexity to these journeys. Blizzards, avalanches, thin ice, and sudden temperature drops could threaten lives at any moment. Humans learned to navigate these risks, observing landmarks, reading snow and ice conditions, and timing their travel according to weather patterns. Hunting along the route provided immediate sustenance, while preserved meat and gathered resources served as reserves. Weak members were always prioritized in food distribution, ensuring that those most susceptible to cold and starvation remained nourished. This careful allocation allowed hunters to focus on acquiring additional resources without jeopardizing the survival of the vulnerable. The practice illustrates the combination of strategy, empathy, and long-term planning that defined Ice Age survival. Winter migrations also required cooperation and rhythm. The pace of travel was deliberately set to match the endurance of the weakest members. Children were guided along safe paths, elders assisted with navigation or observation, and the sick were monitored continuously. Roles shifted according to capability, with stronger individuals adjusting speed, carrying loads, and providing physical support as necessary. This interdependence ensured that no member of the tribe was left behind, and that the entire group could function as a single, cohesive unit, capable of responding to both environmental and predatory threats. The psychological dimension of migration was profound. Long, Grueling journeys through snow and wind could induce stress, fear, and fatigue. Rituals, songs, and storytelling were employed during movement to maintain morale and reinforce social cohesion. Fire, even in temporary camps, served as a symbol of stability, safety, and continuity. Vulnerable members, positioned centrally and shielded by the group, experienced both protection and inclusion, reinforcing trust and confidence in collective survival strategies. This integration of physical protection, psychological reassurance, and social bonding was a hallmark of human adaptability. Migration in winter also required anticipatory planning for potential emergencies. Sudden storms, predator encounters, or injury could threaten the tribe's survival. Leaders and experienced hunters developed contingency strategies, such as alternate routes, safe havens, and emergency shelters. The weakest members were always central to these plans, their safety determining the timing, route, and pace of movement. By embedding the needs of the vulnerable into every decision, cavemen demonstrated a holistic understanding of survival, where the endurance of the group depended on the care, protection, and strategic inclusion of every individual. Ultimately, winter migration was an extraordinary demonstration of human ingenuity, empathy, and foresight. It required observation, strategic planning, physical endurance, and social coordination. Protecting the weak during these treks was not merely an act of care. It was a practical necessity that preserved life, knowledge, and social cohesion. The children, elders, and sick were not passive participants, but central considerations in every decision, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of collective survival. By following the herds, managing resources, and coordinating movement, Ice Age humans transformed a dangerous, frozen landscape into a navigable environment, ensuring the tribe endured and adapted across generations. Migration also reinforced the cultural and spiritual dimensions of survival. Shared hardships, communal songs, and symbolic gestures provided psychological support, creating a sense of purpose and resilience. The weak, sheltered and cared for, participated in these rituals safely, internalizing the tribe's values and practices. In this way, winter journeys were not only physical endeavors, but also social and cultural exercises, embedding the principles of cooperation, foresight, and empathy into the tribe's collective memory. In the end, winter migrations exemplified the delicate balance between risk, strategy, and compassion. Following the herds was more than a pursuit of food. It was a testament to the tribe's intelligence, social organization, and moral reasoning. By safeguarding the vulnerable, planning meticulously, and moving cohesively, cavemen ensured that the tribe not only survived the harshest winters, but also preserved knowledge, culture, and the continuity of human life. These journeys, arduous yet deliberate, became defining moments of adaptation and resilience, demonstrating that the greatest survival advantage lay not in strength alone, but in the careful integration of care, foresight, and collective intelligence. Life in the Ice Age was a constant negotiation with danger, a delicate balance between survival and extinction. For early humans, the world was full of threats that could strike at any moment, from predators like cave lions, wolves, and saber-toothed cats, to rival human groups competing for scarce resources such as food, water, and shelter. Survival was never guaranteed, and even minor miscalculations could prove fatal. Each day required careful planning, vigilance, and cooperation, blending physical skill, social intelligence, and strategic thinking. This section delves into how early humans confronted these threats, developed defense mechanisms, and transformed fear into adaptive strategies, ensuring the continuation of their communities. Predators posed an immediate and constant threat. Wolves, cave lions, hyenas, and other large carnivores were not only dangerous competitors for food, but also life-threatening adversaries. Early humans quickly learned that direct confrontation was often deadly, leading to the development of sophisticated avoidance, deterrence, and defensive tactics. They observed predator behavior, learned hunting patterns, and recognized warning signs of aggression or territory defense. By understanding the movements and habits of these predators, humans could plan routes, select shelter sites, and time their hunting expeditions to minimize risk. The interplay between fear and strategy highlights the cognitive sophistication required to navigate a landscape filled with lethal animals. Fire emerged as one of the most powerful defensive tools. Beyond providing warmth and the ability to cook food, fire served as a deterrent, keeping predators at bay and marking the presence of humans in the environment. Flames could be used strategically during hunts or confrontations, either to drive predators away or signal group members of danger. Controlled use of fire also enabled humans to create safe perimeters around camps and temporary shelters, transforming exposed areas into zones of relative security. The mastery of fire illustrates the intersection of technological innovation and survival instinct, showing how humans could manipulate their environment to reduce vulnerability. Weapons and tools played a critical role in defense. Spears, clubs, stone knives, and later coordinated hunting implements were adapted not only for hunting, but for protecting communities. Humans developed offensive and defensive strategies, learning when to engage, when to retreat, and how to use terrain advantageously. Traps, pitfalls, and ambush techniques minimized risk during encounters with predators or rival groups. The careful calibration between risk and safety demonstrates that early humans were strategic thinkers, capable of planning complex defensive maneuvers while coordinating group efforts under stress. Predation was only one side of the threat equation. Human groups themselves posed significant danger. Competition over hunting grounds, food stores, and shelter could lead to violent confrontations, particularly during harsh winters when resources were scarce. Early humans had to develop social and tactical strategies to navigate these conflicts, balancing diplomacy, deterrence, and aggression. Negotiation and territorial displays may have been common, while preparation for potential conflict remained a constant consideration. Communities learned to assess risks not only from predators, but from the intentions of neighboring groups, highlighting the multidimensional nature of survival in the Ice Age. Group defense required coordination and planning. Effective protection relied on division of labor, with some members acting as lookouts, others preparing weapons or barricades, and others caring for the vulnerable members of the community. Leadership emerged, often from elders or experienced hunters, guiding strategy and making critical decisions in moments of crisis. Coordination reinforced social cohesion, as survival depended on the collective execution of plans and the trust that each member would fulfill their role. The contrast between individual vulnerability and group security underscores the importance of collaboration and shared responsibility in survival outcomes. Predator encounters demanded not only physical skill, but adaptive problem-solving. Humans had to anticipate attacks, interpret signals, and respond in real time. Forming defensive circles, using fire strategically, and utilizing natural terrain for cover were common tactics. Knowledge of predator behavior was continually refined through observation, trial, and collective memory. The Ice Age environment required humans to transform fear into preparation, to convert the unpredictable actions of dangerous animals into opportunities for learning and strategic advantage. Cognitive agility became as essential as physical endurance. Conflict with rival human groups added further complexity. Ice Age communities were aware of territorial boundaries and the value of resources, which often led to clashes. Early humans developed methods to avoid unnecessary violence, including signaling, negotiation, and strategic avoidance. Yet when confrontation was unavoidable, coordinated group defense ensured survival. These encounters reinforced hierarchy, social norms, and tactical thinking. Communities learned to combine communication, planning, and physical skill to defend resources, highlighting the intricate social intelligence embedded in survival practices. Resource management was a critical component of conflict prevention. Groups that stored food effectively, maintained secure shelters, and understood the seasonal availability of resources minimized the likelihood of confrontation with rivals. Efficient use of resources also ensured that energy was available for defensive measures when necessary. Knowledge of environmental hazards, predator activity, and the movement of neighboring groups further informed defensive strategies. Early humans demonstrated foresight and prudence, integrating ecological understanding with social tactics to maximize safety and efficiency. Psychological resilience was crucial in navigating threats. Fear, anxiety, and uncertainty were omnipresent, but humans learned to manage these emotions through social support, rituals, and collective vigilance. Ritualized behaviors and communal practices may have helped process stress, reinforcing morale and focus during high-risk situations. Individuals developed strategies to remain alert without succumbing to panic, ensuring that cognitive function and decision-making remained intact under pressure. The interplay between mental fortitude and survival highlights that enduring extreme conditions required as much psychological skill as physical capability. Innovation often emerged from necessity during conflicts. Early humans refined tools, constructed more effective shelters, and developed tactics that could counter both predators and human adversaries. These innovations were cumulative, building on collective experience and shared knowledge. Trial and error became a critical component of survival learning, where each encounter, successful or failed, provided data for future decision-making. The adaptive capacity of early humans illustrates the feedback loop between environmental challenge, problem-solving, and technological or social advancement. Conflict and defense shape culture and social identity. Young members of the group learned critical skills through observation, practice, and storytelling. Elders transmitted knowledge of predators, territorial boundaries, and tactical strategies, embedding survival skills within cultural memory. Participation in defensive activities reinforced social roles, group cohesion, and a sense of responsibility. The presence of persistent threats fostered a culture of preparedness, vigilance, and mutual support, embedding conflict management as a central aspect of community life. The psychological and social lessons of conflict extend beyond immediate survival. Humans learned risk assessment, strategic planning, and cooperative problem-solving, skills that informed hunting, migration, and social organization. Communities that mastered these elements were more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on knowledge. The contrast between the dangers of the Ice Age and the ingenuity of human response demonstrates that adaptation was a holistic process, integrating cognitive, social, and emotional capacities with physical endurance. By the end of this section, viewers gain a comprehensive understanding of the complex interplay between predators, rival humans, and early human survival strategies. The narrative contrasts the omnipresent dangers of the Ice Age with the intelligence, cooperation, and innovation that enabled humans to thrive. Survival was not merely about strength or speed. It was about vigilance, planning, communication, and emotional resilience. These lessons underscore that human endurance in the Ice Age was multidimensional, blending body, mind, and society into a unified strategy for life. Conflict, both with animals and with other humans, shaped not only immediate survival, but also the evolution of social structures, technological innovation, and cultural practices. Communities that mastered defensive strategies, cooperation, and tactical thinking became resilient and adaptable, passing on knowledge that would influence generations. The legacy of these strategies is evident in modern human behavior, reflecting ancient lessons in vigilance, teamwork, and problem-solving. Through understanding the struggles of Ice Age humans, we gain insight into the foundational elements of human intelligence, society, and ingenuity. The Ice Age was a crucible that tested the limits of human ingenuity, patience, and resilience. Facing months of darkness, bitter cold, and scarce resources, early humans developed a remarkable capacity to adapt. Every challenge, whether tracking prey through snow, preserving food, building shelters, or defending against predators, required innovation. The lessons learned in these extreme conditions not only ensured survival at the time, but also laid the foundation for future human development. Adaptation in the Ice Age was both practical and cognitive, combining observation, trial and error, and cultural transmission to create strategies that could endure across generations. Cavemen refined techniques for managing fire, the ultimate tool against winter's harshness. Fire provided warmth, enabled cooking, warded off predators, and even served as a social and ritual focal point. Mastery over fire required innovation. Methods for creating sparks, controlling flames, and sustaining heat through long nights. These discoveries were not trivial. Each advancement represented a significant leap in survival capability. The contrast between life in freezing darkness and the safety of a firelit shelter underscores the transformative power of human creativity in the face of environmental extremes. Innovation extended to tools and clothing as well. Early humans experimented with different materials for spears, knives, and needles, learning which combinations offered durability, effectiveness, and ease of use. Clothing was adapted for insulation, mobility, and multifunctional use, reflecting a nuanced understanding of materials and human physiology. These innovations were passed on through teaching, imitation, and social practice, forming a culture of technological learning. By observing, testing, and refining solutions, humans turn necessity into a driver of ingenuity, turning environmental hardship into an engine of cultural evolution. Food preservation exemplifies the ingenuity of Ice Age humans. Freezing, drying, smoking, and storing food were not instinctive behaviors. They were developed through careful observation of natural processes and experimentation. These practices ensured that caloric needs could be met even when hunting or foraging failed. They also reduced risk and increased efficiency, enabling humans to endure lean periods without succumbing to starvation. Preservation techniques highlight the combination of foresight, skill, and cognitive problem-solving that characterized Ice Age survival strategies. Adaptation was also social and cultural. Cooperation, communication, and shared knowledge were essential for enduring winter conditions. Complex social structures, rituals, and education systems ensured that critical survival skills were transmitted to each new generation. Emotional resilience, trust, and empathy became survival tools just as vital as fire or weapons. The ability to organize, teach, and support one another exemplifies the interconnected nature of human adaptation, where cognitive, cultural, and emotional intelligence were as crucial as physical prowess. Observation of nature provided additional lessons. Early humans learned to read snow, ice, wind, and animal behavior, using these cues to make informed decisions about hunting, foraging, migration, and shelter. Knowledge of environmental patterns enabled anticipation of danger, optimization of resources, and efficient movement through harsh landscapes. These skills were honed over generations, with trial and error and careful teaching embedding practical knowledge within the culture. The environment itself became a teacher, guiding humans toward ever more sophisticated survival strategies. Patience was another key adaptation. Ice Age survival required long-term thinking, meticulous planning, and delayed gratification. Tracking animals for days, waiting for seasonal growth of edible plants, or tending slow fires demanded self-control and foresight. These behaviors shaped not only survival outcomes but cognitive abilities, reinforcing memory, observation, and problem-solving skills. The contrast between the immediate harshness of winter and the rewards of patient action highlights a core lesson. Survival often depended on foresight, discipline, and the ability to endure discomfort for long-term benefit. Innovation often emerged from necessity. When conventional strategies failed, humans experimented with new tools, methods, or social structures. Risk-taking was calculated, guided by experience and observation. Such trial and error learning fostered resilience, adaptability, and creativity, turning the harsh Ice Age environment into a laboratory for human ingenuity. Each success reinforced knowledge and skill, while each failure provided lessons that shaped future behavior, demonstrating a feedback loop between experience and adaptation. Ice Age adaptation also included psychological strategies. Coping with fear, uncertainty, and scarcity was as important as managing the physical environment. Rituals, storytelling, and communal activities help process stress, reinforce social bonds, and provide mental focus. Emotional resilience allowed humans to maintain clarity, coordination, and patience in the face of prolonged hardship. This interplay of mind, culture, and environment underscores that human survival was a multidimensional achievement, integrating body, cognition, and society. By the end of this section, viewers understand that Ice Age survival was not only about brute strength or luck. It was a story of observation, experimentation, innovation, and social intelligence. Humans adapted to extreme cold through tools, fire, clothing, food strategies, social organization, and psychological resilience. The narrative contrasts the challenges of the frozen wilderness with the ingenuity and adaptability of humans, highlighting lessons that resonate across time. That survival in any harsh environment depends on creativity, foresight, collaboration, and emotional intelligence. This sets the stage for the concluding sections, reflecting on the legacy of Ice Age humans and the enduring insights their survival provides for understanding human resilience and innovation. The story of Ice Age humans is not merely a tale of endurance. It is a testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and adaptability that define our species. Surviving bitter winters, scarce resources, and constant threats required a combination of physical skill, social intelligence, and psychological resilience. The lessons from this era extend far beyond the frozen landscapes of prehistory, offering insights into problem-solving, cooperation, and the human capacity to innovate under extreme pressure. Modern humans, despite the comforts of civilization, can still draw inspiration from the strategies, behaviors, and mindsets that enabled our ancestors to thrive in an unforgiving world. One of the most profound lessons is the value of observation and environmental awareness. Ice Age humans meticulously studied their surroundings, learning to read tracks, weather patterns, and seasonal changes. This acute attention to detail guided their decisions on hunting, foraging, migration, and shelter. Today, this teaches the importance of attentiveness, data interpretation, and situational awareness, reminding us that survival, whether in the wilderness or in complex modern systems, relies on understanding the environment and responding intelligently to its cues. Patience and foresight were equally essential for Ice Age survival. Tracking animals for hours, preserving food for weeks, or waiting for seasonal growth required delayed gratification and long-term planning. These behaviors reinforced cognitive skills such as memory, problem-solving, and strategic thinking. Modern life, though often fast-paced, can benefit from this lesson. Meaningful success often requires planning, persistence, and the ability to endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. The contrast between immediate hardship and eventual reward, so vividly experienced by Ice Age humans, remains a timeless lesson in discipline and resilience. Cooperation and social cohesion were central to enduring harsh winters. Humans relied on families and small communities for warmth, protection, and the transmission of critical survival knowledge. Shared responsibilities, mutual support, and collective problem-solving were vital. Today, this highlights the enduring importance of collaboration, teamwork, and social networks in achieving complex goals. The bonds formed for survival in the Ice Age reflect the human capacity to organize, trust, and support one another, demonstrating that no individual thrives in isolation. Innovation and resourcefulness were key to overcoming scarcity. Early humans adapted tools, clothing, shelters, and preservation methods to the challenges of winter, experimenting with materials and techniques until they found effective solutions. This spirit of creativity under pressure is equally relevant in modern contexts, where innovation often emerges in response to constraints or crises. The legacy of Ice Age ingenuity reminds us that challenges are opportunities to develop new approaches, refine techniques, and expand human capability. Ice Age humans also demonstrated psychological resilience, managing fear, uncertainty, and stress in extreme environments. Rituals, communal activities, and storytelling helped process emotions, maintain focus, and strengthen morale. Modern individuals can draw from this example by recognizing the importance of mental well-being, community support, and coping strategies when facing stressors or uncertainty. The interplay between mind, society, and environment illustrates that resilience is as much psychological as it is physical. Sustainability and resource management were another cornerstone of survival. Early humans maximized the utility of every animal, plant, and natural resource, preserving food, reusing materials, and planning for scarcity. This practice reflects an early understanding of balance and conservation, principles that remain critical today in environmental stewardship, food security, and resource management. The Ice Age teaches that mindful, strategic use of resources is essential not only for survival, but for thriving in challenging conditions. Migration and adaptability further illustrate human flexibility. Ice Age communities moved with the seasons, followed prey, and responded to environmental changes with strategic decisions. Modern humans can learn from this adaptability, recognizing the value of flexibility in career paths, personal development, and societal shifts. The ability to adjust strategies in response to changing circumstances is a hallmark of human resilience, rooted in the lessons of our ancestors who thrived in shifting and hostile landscapes. The spiritual and cultural aspects of Ice Age life also offer lessons. Rituals, storytelling, and symbolic behavior reinforced social cohesion, transmitted knowledge, and provided emotional support. These practices remind us that culture, meaning, and shared experience are vital for human survival and well-being. Even in the face of extreme hardship, early humans sought connection, understanding, and expression, demonstrating that resilience is as much about nurturing the mind and community as it is about physical endurance. Conflict and defense strategies provide further insights. Ice Age humans balanced caution with assertiveness, negotiated risk, and used cooperation to protect their communities. Modern humans can apply these lessons in conflict resolution, strategic planning, and collaborative problem-solving. The ability to assess threats, prepare contingencies, and act collectively is a timeless skill, rooted in the high-stakes environments of prehistoric survival. The legacy of these strategies is evident in modern human organization, military planning, and societal cooperation. In reflection, the story of Ice Age survival is a testament to human potential. Every challenge faced by early humans, cold, hunger, predators, scarcity, and social pressures, required an integrated approach combining physical, cognitive, social, and emotional intelligence. The contrast between the frozen, hostile environment and the resourcefulness, cooperation, and innovation of humans illustrates a core truth. Survival is not only about endurance, but about learning, adapting, and working together. By the end of this section, viewers are invited to contemplate the broader lessons of Ice Age survival. The narrative ties together observation, patience, cooperation, innovation, resilience, and adaptability, showing that the strategies of our ancestors are not relics of the past, but enduring principles applicable to modern life. From environmental awareness to social cohesion, from resourcefulness to psychological strength, the legacy of Ice Age humans continues to inform and inspire, demonstrating that humanity's capacity for survival, ingenuity, and growth has deep, ancient roots. As the Ice Age recedes into history, the story of its human inhabitants remains a profound testament to resilience, ingenuity, and the indomitable spirit of survival. Throughout bitter winters, relentless storms, and landscapes blanketed in snow and ice, early humans demonstrated an extraordinary capacity to adapt, innovate, and thrive. Their lives were defined by a delicate balance between risk and reward, fear and courage, scarcity and resourcefulness. Every decision, from selecting a shelter site to preserving food, from tracking prey to tending the communal fire, was a calculated act of endurance. In this final reflection, we witness not only the physical feats of Ice Age humans, but the cognitive, emotional, and cultural dimensions that allowed them to overcome extraordinary challenges. The enduring legacy of Ice Age survival lies in the seamless integration of observation, intelligence, and cooperation. Humans learned to read the environment with acute precision, noting animal tracks, seasonal changes, and subtle shifts in weather patterns. This knowledge was not theoretical. It was applied daily to secure food, find shelter, and navigate vast frozen terrains. Communities shared insights, teaching the young, supporting the elderly, and protecting each other against predators and rival groups. The narrative contrast between the lethal unpredictability of the Ice Age and the careful, deliberate strategies employed by humans illustrates a remarkable story of adaptation. Technological innovation was another cornerstone of survival. Early humans crafted tools to hunt, defend, and maintain their environment. Clothing evolved to provide warmth and mobility, while shelters were constructed to withstand icy winds and snow accumulation. Fire mastery offered both practical and symbolic advantages, providing warmth, safety, and a focal point for social and ritual life. These innovations were not isolated inventions. They were cumulative, refined through experimentation, observation, and social learning. The Ice Age demonstrates that human ingenuity is forged in response to adversity, a lesson that resonates across time. Social cohesion and collaboration were equally vital. Survival depended on trust, coordination, and shared responsibility. Families and small communities became units of resilience, pooling knowledge, labor, and resources to endure the harshest conditions. Emotional support, storytelling, and ritual practices helped maintain morale, provide structure, and transmit critical survival knowledge. The strength of these bonds underscores the idea that humans are fundamentally social creatures. Cooperation is not only a moral choice, but a biological and cultural imperative. The contrast between the danger of isolation and the security of a well-coordinated group highlights the power of collective intelligence. Ice Age humans also demonstrated profound psychological resilience. They endured fear, uncertainty, and scarcity with patience, foresight, and creativity. Rituals, communal gatherings, and symbolic expressions provided mechanisms to process emotions, strengthen social ties, and maintain focus during long, freezing nights. Their ability to transform anxiety into preparation, stress into strategy, and hardship into learning illustrates the depth of human cognitive and emotional adaptability. These skills were as critical to survival as fire, clothing, or weapons, highlighting that enduring extreme environments requires holistic intelligence, combining mind, body, and community. Migration and mobility reveal another layer of human sophistication. Following migrating herds, locating seasonal resources, and navigating treacherous landscapes demanded precise planning, knowledge of natural cycles, and coordination within groups. These journeys were high-stakes exercises in observation, judgment, and cooperation, where error could mean injury, starvation, or death. Yet they also fostered learning, cultural transmission, and social cohesion. The ability to move through, understand, and adapt to dynamic environments is a testament to human resilience and strategic thinking. Conflict and defense further shape survival. Predators and rival groups impose constant threats, requiring vigilance, coordination, and tactical innovation. Humans learned to balance caution with assertiveness, protect resources, and organize collective defense. These experiences reinforced social hierarchy, shared responsibility, and problem-solving skills, highlighting that survival was as much about negotiation, intelligence, and collaboration as it was about brute strength. The lessons from these encounters emphasize the multifaceted nature of human adaptation. The cumulative effect of these strategies, observation, innovation, cooperation, mobility, and psychological resilience, created a legacy that extends far beyond the Ice Age. Modern humans inherit not only the biological traits of our ancestors, but also the cognitive frameworks and cultural practices that allowed them to endure. The principles of patience, foresight, adaptability, and collaboration remain relevant today, reminding us that the capacity to survive extreme conditions is both a heritage and a continuous practice. Finally, the Ice Age teaches a profound lesson about human potential. Even in the most unforgiving conditions, with threats at every turn, humans found ways to endure, innovate, and thrive. Scarcity inspired creativity, fear inspired vigilance, cold inspired cooperation. The frozen landscapes of prehistory were more than a backdrop. They were active teachers, shaping intelligence, culture, and resilience. By reflecting on the lives of Ice Age humans, we gain insight into the fundamental qualities that define humanity: the capacity to observe, learn, adapt, and support one another in the face of adversity. As we conclude, viewers are invited to consider the enduring relevance of these lessons. From environmental awareness to social cohesion, from technological innovation to psychological resilience, the story of Ice Age survival is a mirror for contemporary life. It reminds us that humans possess an extraordinary ability to transform challenges into opportunities, fear into strategy, and scarcity into ingenuity. The frozen world of our ancestors, once a theater of struggle and endurance, becomes a timeless source of inspiration, illustrating that the spirit of survival is not confined to the past, but is an intrinsic part of human nature.